right, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to the grief process, everyone. So we're gonna go ahead and get started for the sake of time, everyone. So for the next 2.5 months, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about grief. We'll be talking about in different variables. On yesterday, for those who follow me on Instagram, I was on here talking about the same topic we're talking about today. So those of you who use Facebook will be doing the grief process on Fridays at 1 p.m. And for those of you who use Instagram, will be doing the grief process on Instagram on Thursdays at 1 p.m. So that way everybody get a chance to see it. Facebook and YouTube get a chance to see this on Fridays, and Instagram see this episode on Thursday. All right. So today's topic, everybody, is entitled "Understanding the Five Stages of Grief." All right, you may have heard the five stages, but are they? And does grief really follow a set time frame? Who developed the five stages of grief? The five stages of grief model was developed by Elizabeth Kusher Russell and became famous after she published her book on death and dying in 1969. Kusher Ross developed her model to describe people with terminal illnesses facing their own death, but it was soon adapted as a way of thinking about grief in general. Do the five stages of grief happen in order? So the five stages of grief is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Are often talked about as if they happen in order, moving from one stage to another. You might hear people say things like, "Oh, I've moved on from denial and now I think I'm entering the anger stage," but this isn't often the case. In fact, Kuja Russell, in her writing, making it clear that the stages are non-linear. People can experience these aspects of grief at different times, and they do not happen in one particular order. You might not experience all the stages, and you might find feelings are quite different with different bereavement. Okay, I'm gonna start right here. With different bereavement, ladies and gentlemen, with grief overall, it has different stages to it. And for me, I've been through that experience here. Sorry, everybody. And to know everybody grieves differently, everybody feels things differently, and it's a different level to each grief. Some grief is like, whew, and some is a sigh, and some are kind of like mediatic. Depends on where you are, and also too, but depends on how your mindset is. Because a lot of people don't, it doesn't hit them instantly, and some people have delayed grief where it doesn't hit them till later on down the line. And delayed grief is another thing we're going to talk about later on in this segment in the weeks to come about what is delayed grief and how have I experienced it, have I kind of just pulled it in the back burner. And truth be told, be honest, many people don't even realize they have it until all of a sudden one day they just start wailing and crying for no reason. There is a reason to be honest, but they try to understand why is it happening now. It's delayed grief. But like I said, I don't want to get too deep into that one. Everybody, this is the holiday season. And the holidays and the anniversaries and the birthdays and the celebrations are very triggering in this time of the year. Thanksgiving Eve, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and even on with the birthdays and the anniversary of a person's death and the anniversaries of something they enjoyed or something that reminds you of that man or that woman, that child, or even a pet. And some people have lost their pets. And they're grieving a loss too. And there's a grief counseling support for those who have lost their pets. It is like, huh? Yeah. I've looked into it. I did that last year because some people have a very strong bond with their pets, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well as what is grief on next Friday, to kind of give you an insight about how those who deal with the grief of losing a pet and how those dealing with the grief of losing different people that were very close to them. We wanted to kind of really touch real topics overall about it because everybody thinks and looks at grief in a different perspective. See, a lot of times when we go through these episodes, people want you to always be happy. And that's going to tie into what we're going to talk about on next week as well in terms of grief outbursts and how those happen. And I've learned that because I went through counseling for myself. I went through group counseling. I went through numerous support groups for the first year and a half. So I know what I'm talking about in terms of these things. There's little other things I learned along the way about how to deal with that. The first year is the hardest, and it really is. And a therapist told me, straight, blunt, no transparent, that you're not going to be okay until after that day has passed. It's okay to stay in that place for a day, but don't let it linger on. That leads to complicated grief. That means you have to get psychological help in terms of how to get yourself back together and live a somewhat healthy and productive life. I'm being honest, somewhat. I'm not going to be 100%, okay? Somewhat a healthy and productive life. While everybody else is still going on with their life, you're still having problems, and you're going to always have those days where you don't want to talk, or you can't eat, you can't sleep. those are those are emotions that you're feeling in your mind, in your heart, because grief is love, and that's what I experienced in my own personal life. Right. So the first one is denial. Feeling numb is common in the early days after bereavement. Some people at first carry on as if nothing has happened. Even if we know with our heads that someone has died, it can be hard to believe that someone important is not coming back. That someone important is not coming back. It's also very common to feel the presence of someone who also has died. Hear their voices, or even some, or even see them. Denial. That's one of the hardest things when you start the process of this, is because you don't believe it. You can't believe it's real. You got to pinch yourself and see if you're dreaming. You wake up and thinking the person's there, or the person's going to answer the phone, they're going to text you, this and that, and they're not. And that's the hardest after the chew. All right. The month of, let me think, it was August that I did the grief process on my rails. For those of you who follow, have seen it, I've talked about and shared my story with everyone to kind of talk about what happened to me and how I went through that. And let me tell you this, everybody, like I said, everybody on Instagram, I'm gonna kind of give it to you in a paraphrase word, because I don't remember everything I said yesterday on Instagram. Just being honest. But when denial hit me, I didn't believe it. It wasn't real. It felt numb. I felt complacent. I felt confused and just all over the place. And honestly, truthfully, everybody, grief is an ongoing battle for the rest of your life. Okay? It's just going to be the way it is. And it's hard to really come to terms with it when you know deep down inside that life has changed for you. The next step for you is to deal with coming together with your mind and wrapping your mind around those things that weathers down in your spirit. And then now is the first thing people say, oh, that person ain't gone, they just sleeping. And the mind is not corresponding properly, and they're not accepting it. All right. The next one is anger. Anger is a complete natural emotion, and very natural after someone dies. Death can seem cruel and unfair, especially when you feel someone has died before their time, or you have plans for the future together. It's also common to feel angry toward the person who has died, or angry at ourselves for things we did or didn't do before their death. Been there, where you could have changed the situation, or you could have spoken up or been verbal, and that's how I felt at that given time, everybody. Um, it makes you really think about, why did it make you angry? Why are you feeling emotions? Because it's a natural experience to feel these things. Why is it natural? Because you have feelings. And you think you felt like you could have did more, or you could have handled it different, as that woulda, shoulda, coulda thing. And I had to come to terms with that in my own life. That I did the best I knew how to at that time. And do I have regrets? At times it still kind of surface up, but it's not as bad as it was when it first started with the grief. And it started to subside a lot for me in 2 years and 2 months now. And it's not a normal life, okay? It's nothing normal about it. We're just gonna be honest. You try the best you can to get through life, and you try to cope with it. But you're going to cry. You're going to be depressed. You're going to have sad moments. It's going to be a certain song or a certain food or a certain fragrance or a cologne or a favorite TV show or something that brings up memories, and you're going to tear up. You're going to cry. You're like, yeah, I'm being honest. You're going to cry. But the thing is, are you going to stay right here, or are you going to push through it? And pushing through it, ladies and gentlemen, is like the hardest thing for you to do, because you don't want to push through. You want to stay there, and you can't stay there because it leads to other things. And this is where you have to make up your mind. This is why I highly recommend support groups. I know many people don't like talking to strangers. I was one of those who didn't want to talk to strangers, but I knew deep down inside that I didn't get the help that I needed. My own grief. No, no, who knows what I would be today? Speaking to you all, if I didn't go and seek counseling, if I didn't go and do support groups, if I didn't join support groups on and off for the holidays, for just any time, just to get connected with those, just to have somebody hear what I was experiencing and going through. It's rough. It's very rough. But to know that everybody's going through that in some scenario, ladies and gentlemen, it's very supportive, very, very rewarding to know you're not alone. A lot of times you feel like you're alone, but the moment you begin to open your mouth, you're like, hey, I didn't know you were going through that. Hey, I didn't know you were going through that. Begin to talk about it. Begin to build a community. And then you begin to see, like, man, I'm not the only one that experienced this. You're not. It feels like you're alone, but there's others going through it all the time. And boy, they can tell you how they feel. If some kind of begin to cry, and you can tell how they feel by the things that they're saying. I know I've been there. All right, everybody. The next one is bargaining. I'm eating and talking at the same time, so excuse us for that. A little hungry, so. When we are in pain, it is sometimes hard to accept that there's nothing we can do to change things. Bargaining is when we start to make details with ourselves, or perhaps with God if you're religious. We want to believe that if we act a particular way, we will feel better. It's also common to find ourselves going over and over things that happened in the past and asking a lot of what if questions and wishing we could go back and change things and hope things could have turned out differently. We make decisions sometimes based on right now decisions. Sometimes we think about it because we don't know what to do and we just handle it the same way. And as I go back and think about the decisions I could have changed different or handled different, I would have. But that's it's all said and done now. You can't go back, you only can move forward. And bargaining means basically, recording the things and the events in your mind and trying to convince yourself that you're okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to punch stuff. Just not equal, but it's okay to release a lot of stuff, because the more you release a lot of the emotions and feelings you're having, a lot of things will start to unpack for you. Let me tell you a quick story about me. And I talked about it on Instagram. So for years, I never really knew the full definition of grief. Okay. And for years, I've always heard about it, but I never knew about it until someone very, very close to me passed away. And that's when reality really hit. I was feeling emotions and things I felt before, but this was a little different than the last griefs that I felt. The grief of losing my great grandmother, losing my grandfather, losing the grief of my grandmother and aunties and cousins. That grief felt so different. And those folks who went on, I was young at the time, so I really didn't get the full definition of what grief is. See, with children, their perspective is grief. Perspective of grief is completely different as an adult. So they may not feel these emotions the way that we feel them. They feel them in doing things that occupy their time or try to consume other things to try not to feel it. And we're going to talk about a lot of that as the weeks to come about children's grief and how they deal with that. It's a real eye opener, I should say. All right. It's a real eye opener to pay attention to children. And for years, people have came and went on in my life. But I've never experienced grief the way I did in my life until I hit the age of 36. And what happened with 36, the most amazing, beautiful woman of all, went on to be with the Lord. And I could not wrap my mind around those things. And let's just say, I took it hard, to the point that suicidal, depressed, didn't want to sleep, didn't sleep very well, didn't eat very much. The holidays was not very good, um, to the point that I needed to get some support. So I went and signed myself up, and including my kids, of course. Grief support didn't last too long for them because theirs is on a whole nother wavelength than mine, and that's a whole other conversation there, I should say. But I'll elaborate. They had to go and get outside counseling from grief. I should say my two oldest. My son did a little bit, but he was a little fidgety, so he wasn't very comfortable in doing that. So he finds other things to do at home to keep his mind occupied. He does talk about his grandma periodically and whatnot, and necessary. And what's ironic about him, my son, excuse me, our son, went, he wanted to go to the cemetery on his birthday. And how many 9-year-olds want to go? I know of want to go to the cemetery on his birthday. He wanted to say something to his grandmother, and he did. And I know he got an old soul because he went to the cemetery on his birthday to visit his grandmother. And of course, I went to see my grandmother, and he asked me this question. He's like, "Mommy, what's great grandpa at?" I said, "Ooh." So me and him walked, gave him space to talk to his grandmother, say what he needed to say. So we walked on the other side of the cemetery, and his great grandfather and my granddaddy is in one of those tombs where he was cremated, and he's way up top. And literally, I had to say, "Hey son, your great granddaddy way up there in that tomb up there." So I really had to zoom in. I had to stand up on stuff just to get to it. And I had to say, "God forgive me stepping on the stuff." But look, you behold, we got it done. I took a picture of the plaque so that way I remember where he is because it's been so long. When my grandfather passed, it was in 1989, and I was only 5 years old. And that's where my journey of grief began when he passed. A few years later, my grandmother passed. Then her sister passed. Then some more relatives passed. And then years down the line, some more relatives passed. And then again, my grandmother, my mother's side passed. So it was just an ongoing battle. Then my uncle passed. Then some more cousins. So I've dealt with a lot of trauma in my day. I grieved with my grandmother, my granddaddy, and my grandmother, but not the way I grieved with mama. Because mama and grandma and grandpa and grandma and great grandma, all of them, the grief is different. And I can go back and think about all those loved ones and family who went on. We were close, but the thing was, me and my mama were close, like joined at the hip. When she seen me, when you see her, you see me, we joined at the hip. And that's why it hurt so bad. And that's why I took it so hard. And so many people got tired of me moping around, looking sad and depressed. I had to make a decision to go get me some help and get some counseling. And I really had to do that. Why am I sharing this shoulder with you all? To let you know, past that has went through grief and have lost people, like many of us, and have dealt with grief in various scenarios to realize that I was carrying all this luggage of grief in my suitcase, or I should say a duffel bag, all these years from the age of 5 years old, and didn't realize how bad it was until I started talking to this complete stranger who didn't know me from blue to yellow. I told this lady everything. And when I began to share a lot of stuff, she said, "You have went through a lot of trauma in your life since a child." And I didn't realize when I unpacked that stuff that I was carrying all that for a long time. And it began to make me realize the reason why I act the way I act. Because I really didn't put the full concept of what grief really meant. And I never really grieved. I kind of just said grief for a moment and went back to life. That's not how it works. Not anymore. I began to learn new topics, new way to do things. I learned a lot of different ways to how to manage my grief and how to write things down and how to verbalize and address things in different fashion. It's a new world for grief, and it's not an easy road, ladies and gentlemen. It's a hard road, and there's going to always be challenges along the way as you go through your grief. Do it subside? In some cases, it does for some people, and some people continue to struggle. And that's why I say they have to go in for compli- complicated grief. That means grief that's go on as well as getting psychological help to cope with these things. Depression, sadness, and lingering are what we think of most often when we think about grief. This pain can be very intense and come in waves, and over months or years, life can feel like it's no longer holds any meaning, which can be very scary. So for me, like I said, I was suicidal, depressed, didn't want to do anything, and that ties into us, my spiritual, I would say, godmother. The Lord had to really send her to deal with me because I'm heading down into a ministry, and I was in a place right in that moment that I didn't want to do anything else. I didn't want to preach. I didn't want to teach. I didn't Bible study. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to just live. And that's when I had to be dealt with, like the conversation of this is what you need to do. This is need. This is what you have to figure out. This is where you have to get yourself together. And ever since that day, I'm doing a lot better. I tell you that. I have my sad moments, but I don't let it consume me as much as I have. I'm pretty much sharing my story with you all to kind of help you get a better understanding of the five stages of grief and how that feels. And I tell you, that depression will take a whole world by itself if you allow it. If you allow it to consume you like I did, it's so hard to get out of it until somebody physically have to pull you out of it, or you have to take some type of suppressive medication to do that. And why am I saying this? Because so many people, let's just be honest, go through this every single day. And they're just trying to find comfort. They're trying to find some type of peace. They're trying to find some type of happiness and clarity. But it's hard because the one that you love is no longer here. And you just want to feel validated. You just want to feel loved. You just want to feel appreciated. You just want somebody to tell you that they love you and care about you, despite about what you're going through. Let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen. When you begin to go down this road, you're gonna lose people along the way. They're gonna get tired of you crying. They're gonna get tired of you wailing. They're gonna get tired of you talking about the same thing because they don't understand what you're going through, what you're experiencing, because they haven't walked down that type of grief or ever experienced anything in their life at that point. So they really don't want to hear it. And the old saying true, after they have went through the phase of the shock and preparing for funerals and everything else, you're gonna see people start to skedaddle and go back to their lives and not really think about who you are or how you really doing. You may have some that stick around that make sure you good, but then people go back to their lives. And that's like the most hurtful thing to know that whew, they were there for the parents and the food and the love and everything, the shock and the pain. But the aftermath of how are people doing after all of these take place, after they prepare the funeral, after they get the thing set up, after they have the viewing, after they have the funeral, after they have the repast, people go back to their normal lives. They do. And it's an eye opener, everybody. It really is. And it's very, very scary to see these things taking place right before your eyes. You may have one or two that still contact you every now and then, but for everyone else, life goes back to normal. And here you are trying to get things taken care of in terms of any type of financial stress or any type of obligation that they can be taken care of. But the one thing I've learned about grief is that you can live a promising life, and you can do it and encourage other people in the same process. The last one we're going to talk about before we close is grief comes in waves, and it feels like nothing will ever be right again. But gradually, most people find that the pain eases, and it's possible. Sorry about that incoming call. Grief comes in waves, and it can feel like nothing will ever be right again. But gradually, most people find that the pain eases, and it's possible to accept what has happened. We may never get over death of someone precious, but we can learn to live again while keeping the memories of those who have lost close to us. And that is the hardest thing for anyone to do. Some people accept it, and some people don't. And that's where the reality is, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of those leaders that's going to be very transparent with you all. Some people can live again, and some people never do. That's the pros and cons of this. You one of those. I'm being very transparent. You just don't. Some people don't ever celebrate Christmas or Thanksgiving or any type of holidays. They want to bypass those holidays. And just truth be told, you gotta learn how to come up with some coping skills. So I want to encourage you all, okay, to do something this holiday for you, okay, for you, and do it with the heart of gratitude. For me, I won't be in the area, so I'm doing something different for the family. We are doing something different this holiday, so we're gonna be in the area. Because for the last couple of years, um, we try to celebrate and have a tradition, but let's just be honest here. It didn't feel the same. It was just very bland and very painful and very dark and gloomy. And I want to be happy on Thanksgiving. Heck, I want to be happy for Christmas, but it didn't feel like that. It just felt so dark and gloomy, and it just wasn't no life. There was no celebration, ladies and gentlemen. And that's like the hardest thing to really take note that you are trying to live again. And that's where I'm at right now in terms of the holidays. I need to come up with a new tradition. And I think traveling may be something that we'll be doing for a while for the holidays and not be home until I come up with something different as a family. Um, it just doesn't feel the same. So I just encourage you to do something different that you didn't do last holiday. Pick out a favorite movie that you enjoy, a song, or something that's uplifting to kind of help your spirits. And just begin to feel joy within yourself. It starts with you, ladies and gentlemen. So I just want to encourage you to just take time and practice gratitude during this grief holiday season and anniversaries. Because as long as you look out for you and you can share this goodness with everybody else, it's going to help you out tremendously. It really is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning in on YouTube and Facebook. I just wanted to share that nugget with you all. So we'll be back on next Friday. We're talking about what is grief, and we're going to go on various scenario nations of how every grief is different in terms of a mother, a father. We're just going to give you the primary examples of what it because, like I said, everybody grieves differently, and everybody has different phases that they may be in. But I hope this helped you all in the 30 minutes I was on here with you all. So you all have a blessed and a fabulous weekend. Pastor will see you all on Sunday at 7 a.m. Don't forget that Sunday is first Sunday, which is Communion Sunday. So make sure you have your crackers, your grape juice, water, bread, some of your specimens to do communion. And we're still on the topic of family matters, which is the last of this series. And we get ready to kick off another message on the following Sunday. And then we're going to have something very amazing that's going to fill your heart with joy. In the next three Sundays, we're going to definitely talk about something that's going to put a smile on your face. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I love you all. God bless you all. Have an amazing and fabulous Friday. Continue to read your word and be in prayer 20 minutes longer a day. Continue to go out and spread the gospel and encourage people and practice gratitude and practice empathy and being selfless and all those great things. And also practice self care and self love for yourself because you matter, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Pastor J, love you all. I'll see you all on Sunday.